Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to get started after all. Sat Sri Akal, Namaskar, Assalamu Alaikum, good afternoon, Ji Ayanu, any type of greeting we can have today, that's a blessing. We're gathered here today for a very, very noble cause to celebrate our common heritage. We're talking about Guru Nanak, who is revered and respected by all of us equally, some little more, some little less, but nonetheless, he is revered by all of us worldwide. And it's a celebration which brings us all together. And nothing gives me more pleasure than the fact that people from 3 different sects and language backgrounds and religious backgrounds are here today, sitting together. I've been trying, it's been a dream of mine for many, many years. And at small scales, I have been able to accomplish that. But this is the first time that in this number, and there'll be more soon, we have come together. So I would like all of us to applaud all of us by clapping on this happy occasion. I'd like to invite the MC of the first session, Dr. Priya Satia. Please welcome. Yesterday we were at Yuba City. For that, I owe my thanks to Sonia Dhami. What a wonderful lady she is. I was introduced to her by my little sister Rabia and also Beti. आपके सामने जो बैठी हैं हमारी MC of the first session, Dr. Priya Satia. The first session will be emceed by Priya, and before we do that, I have Sonia. She would like to say a few words. Sonia, the Executive Director of Sikh Foundation. I'm sure many of you know her. Please welcome her warmly, Sonia Dhami.
The United Muslims Association, the Sikh Foundation, America ਦੀ ਪੁਰਾਣੀ ਸੰਸਥਾਵਾਂ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਹਨ ਤੇ ਸੋਚਣ ਵਾਲੀ ਗੱਲ ਇਹ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇੰਨੇ ਵਰੇ ਲੱਗ ਗਏ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੋਣ 'ਚ ਸਿੱਖ ਫਾਊਂਡੇਸ਼ਨ ਨੇ 2 ਸਾਲ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਆਪਣੀ 50ਵੀਂ ਸਾਲਗਿਰਾ ਮਨਾਈ ਤੇ ਯੂਨਾਈਟਿਡ ਮੁਸਲਿਮਸ ਐਸੋਸੀਏਸ਼ਨ ਵੀ 30 ਸਾਲ ਤੋਂ ਉੱਤੇ ਪੁਰਾਣੀ ਹੈ ਅੱਜ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸੁਨਹਿਰਾ ਦਿਨ ਚੜ੍ਹਿਆ ਤੇ 2 ਗੁਆਂਢੀ ਮਿਲੇ ਹਨ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਭਾਈ ਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦੇ ਮਸ਼ਹੂਰ ਕਵੀ ਦੀਆਂ ਕੁਝ ਪੰਕਤੀਆਂ ਯਾਦ ਆਉਂਦੀਆਂ ਹਨ ਉਹ ਅਜੇ ਸੰਭਾਲ ਇਸ ਸਮੇਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਠਹਿਰਨ ਜਾਚ ਨਾ ਜਾਣਦਾ ਉਹ ਅਜੇ ਸੰਭਾਲ ਇਸ ਸਮੇਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਠਹਿਰਨ ਜਾਚ ਨਾ ਜਾਣਦਾ ਲੰਘ ਗਿਆ ਤੇ ਮੁੜ ਕੇ ਨਾ ਆਣਦਾ ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਅੱਜ ਅਨਮ ਤੇ ਹਰੂਨ ਨੂੰ ਤਹਿ ਦਿਲ ਤੋਂ ਸ਼ੁਕਰਗੁਜ਼ਾਰ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਪਾਕਿਸਤਾਨ ਤੋਂ ਆਏ ਤੇ ਆ ਸਬਬ ਬਣਾਇਆ ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮਿਲੇ ਹਾਂ ਅੱਜ ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ And now looking back at history, the tragedy of 1947, when millions of people left their homes, and they left with only the things they could carry in their 2 hands. When they left, they also left behind a huge part of their heritage, their identity, their culture. And they also included their monuments and buildings. Sadly, most of this is not even accessible to us anymore. And this is true for people on both sides of the Great Divide, as Anam calls it. Many years ago, the Sikh Foundation partnered with UNESCO to restore an 18th century monument in the town of Sri Hargobindpur in Punjab in India. Now, this monument was not a Gurdwara. It was a mosque built by our sixth Guru, Guru Hargobind, for the Muslim inhabitants of the town. This is the example that our gurus have set for us of tolerance, love, and respect for all religions. Now, why are these buildings and monuments important? For me, it's one main reason, because these buildings illuminate a past in which Sikhs, Muslims, and Hindus lived together in harmony and peace. And these are the stories that the Sikh Foundation wants to share with the world. Today, we are very fortunate to have researchers like Haroon, Amardeep Singh, Iqbal Kaisar, who have put together resources for us. And it is now on us to take their work a step further and to use this knowledge that they have so passionately and with dedication collected to help in the restoration of our buildings and monuments. And the Sikh Foundation would like to work with you, would like to help you to restore these buildings. I'm joined here today with a number of members of my community. And also present today here are some of the trustees of the Sikh Foundation, Mr. Sardul Samra, Ms. Sukhi Singh, and Mr. Pratinder Singh Arora. I now request Mr. Pratinder Singh Arora to please come to the stage and present Anam and Haroon with a token of our appreciation for their valuable research. This is a copy of our book. Thank you, Pratibha. This is a copy of our book, Sikh Art from the Kapani Collection, which was co-published by the Smithsonian Institute, and I have the honor to co-edit it as well. We do have a few copies available here at a special event price, and I'd like to encourage all of you to please get a copy and also pick up your copies of Haroon and Anam's book. So with this, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time here to come together under one roof and to work as a community towards some mutual goals that we all share. Thank you very much.
We're going to start our first session, and for that, I'll invite our very own Dr. Priya Satia, Professor of International History at Stanford University, for those of you who may not know that, author of several books. And there's another organization that we have been running and celebrating here called Urdu Academy, and she's a very active member of that as well. So, please welcome Dr. Priya Satia. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tashie. Thank you all for coming. And thank you to the United Muslims of America and Sikh Foundation and Undercover Urdu Academy is here too, organizing behind the scenes, and of course Chandni Restaurant. Of course, the guiding spirit behind all of this is Tashie Zaheer Saab, my uncle. So as Tashie uncle mentioned, I'm a professor of history at Stanford University. My own field is British Empire, modern Britain and British Empire, but I also work in some of these areas that overlap with what Haroon and Anam are working on. So let me first introduce our first author, Haroon Khalid, and then I'll lay out the format and then we'll have our conversation. So Haroon Khalid, the author of Walking with Nanak, grew up in Lahore, and he studied anthropology at LUMS, the Lahore University of Management and Sciences, and then began a career as a travel writer and a journalist. You can find his journalistic writing in media outlets like the Friday Times and Dawn, some of the major newspapers in Pakistan. He also writes a weekly column for the popular website scroll.in, which has a lot of fascinating things on a regular basis. I encourage you to look at that site if you haven't already. So Walking with Nanak is his third book. His previous books, and you'll see a kind of pattern and themes here. The first book was in 2013 called A White Trail, Minorities in Pakistan, and that was in an ethnographic vein. And then the next book was The Enigma of Pakistani Identity, which came out in 2017. And he now lives in Islamabad at the same address as our other speaker for today. So, I just want to say a few words about Walking with Nanak. How many of you have already read this book? Quite a few. Okay, good. So the book is it's a very beautiful book. It's kind of a meditation on Guru Nanak's footsteps in the land that makes up present-day Pakistan. I don't want you to take this discussion as a substitute for reading the book. You really should read this book. You should leave it around for your kids to read the book as well. It's definitely, it's a book that will stay with you and provide a lot of insight. So there's a lot to discuss because of the nature of the book. History, method, how do you write a story like this? What methods do you draw on? Anthropology, history, memory, things like that. The process of writing and traveling, identities, who are the people, how do we think of ourselves? How does one's identity change in the process of writing a book like this? And then the most essential questions of belief, and whether and how we might recover different, what you might call ways of being than the ones we have now, which are very compartmentalized. I will go as far as to say that. Some of the questions that I'm going to ask Haroon, they're friendly, but they will maybe appear provocative just for the sake of forcing clarity. I don't want to tiptoe around anything. I understand these are emotional and sensitive subjects, but we're all here together to learn, and we will have an opportunity to open up the discussion in the second half. So we're gonna have a conversation on the stage. I will ask Haroon some questions for about 40 minutes or so. I know we started a little late and I don't want everyone to get hungry. But then we will transition and take questions from you for Haroon to answer. So I'll keep an eye on the clock and make sure we budget time for that. Okay, so let's begin. I'll bring the mic down and we can then sit side by side. Good idea. All right. Okay, so the first question is sort of the obvious one, is how did you come to devote yourself, Haroon, to walking with Nanak?
Well, first of all, hello everybody. Thank you so much for coming here. It means a lot to me. Thank you, Tashie uncle, for making this possible. Thank you, the Sikh Foundation, Chandni Restaurant, and United Muslims of America. And of course, thank you, Dr. Priya, for moderating this session. So I mentioned this yesterday. I was at Yuba City, and it's actually the first time I've talked about the book in front of the Sikh community. And still, of course, this is my second talk in front of the Sikh community. So I've marketed the book in Pakistan primarily. I haven't been to India since the book came out because of the political situation. And once again, I'm still very, very nervous talking about Guru Nanak as a Muslim, Punjabi, Pakistani to the Sikh community. I don't think I deserve to be here in that context. So if I make any mistakes because I'm so nervous, please forgive me, and just treat me as a student, and please correct me if I'm wrong on any of the fronts. So coming back to the question, so why would I write a book on Guru Nanak? I think there's multiple reasons for that. And firstly, I think is the awkward silence that surrounds firstly Sikh heritage and also Guru Nanak in Pakistan, right? So Guru Nanak's entire life, or a large part of his life, is spent in what today is Pakistan. He spent the last 17 years of his life in Kartarpur Sahib. His home was his home is in Pakistan. His Nanka was in Pakistan, and of course there are hundreds. I think there are about 100 odd gurdwaras in Pakistan that are associated with Guru Nanak, which means that these are places where he either grew up. These are places where he either performed some sort of a miracle. These are places that he visited, and they are scattered all over the country, in small villages, in small cities, also of course in big towns, in big cities like Lahore, even Karachi, Bhera, Multan, everywhere. So Nanak is perhaps, and this is a topic that we don't talk about today, but Nanak is actually one of the most well-traveled person of his time period. So he did travel the length and breadth of Pakistan, and I think, and of course, so those monuments exist, but those monuments exist in this awkward silence that surrounds the Sikh history or Guru Nanak's history in Pakistan. Nobody talks about it. School children are not taught about who Guru Nanak is. It's not part of everyday conversation like many other Sufis would be. Many other Sufis are. So, and of course, in my formal years of education, I never learned about Guru Nanak. So, but as a Punjabi, I feel you can't escape Guru Nanak. His role in forming the Punjabi identity, and of course as growing up, of course, eventually became very aware of my Punjabi identity, and so for me it's almost like a way of connecting to my identity, to link back to Guru Nanak. So I in fact discovered Guru Nanak after my formal education. I met a very interesting person who I talked about in the book, Iqbal Kaisar, who had already done pivotal work on Sikh shrines in Pakistan. If you haven't seen his work, you have to. It is the pioneering work on Sikh gurdwaras in the country. So I had the honor of meeting him, and of course I became his disciple. And together we traveled all across the country, and we saw these gurdwaras, and we saw, of course, many other temples and historical places as well. So the idea was to start a conversation in the country, to talk about. To kind of break away from that very awkward silence that surrounds Guru Nanak in the country.
Yes, I want to talk more about your relationship with your mentor as we go through, and the whole idea of the Guru Jela student, the word you used to describe yourself, is important in the whole book. So just related to that, from the very first pages of the book, when you tell the story of Guru Nanak's mother, Mata Tripta Ji, and how she became a mother in the first instance, you start out treating this story about this Hindu woman and the beginning of Sikhism in this region as part of your own patrimony. You use the word "my own culture," right? And that reminded me of someone like Intizar Hussain, another Pakistani writer who treats this, whether it's Buddhist, Jaini, Hindu, Sikh heritage, as my own heritage, even though he moved to Pakistan. And I was hoping you could talk a little bit about the significance of making that move and using that phrase and making that claim that this is my heritage. What does it mean to do that for you and to do that in Pakistan today?
So I think one unfortunate thing that has happened in the past, let's say, 100 odd years, is this division of history and this division of heritage and division of culture into different religions. Right? So the idea of Sikh history or Sikh heritage, the idea of Muslim history and Muslim heritage, or the idea of Hindu history and Hindu heritage. I think they're very artificial boundaries that were set up during the colonial era primarily. And we live in a post-colonial world. We live in a post-British society. And I think it's time that we reclaim how we have viewed history. And I don't think so. For example, historians or even. So, for example, there were many Muslim devotees, for example, of Guru Nanak. They are still today in Sindh, a huge segment of community known as Hindu Panthi, Nanak Panthi Hindu. So, every, for example, Hindu temple that you would go to in Sindh, in Pakistan today, will have a picture of Guru Nanak. Now, of course, when you have a proper official census, they will be labeled as Hindus and not Sikhs, and that, of course, and you will have very similar sentiment in many Muslim communities, or at least used to have that before partition. Many Muslims who were also Nanak Panthis, and those. So there is a long tradition of identities being very blurred in our part of the world. So it was okay at one point to be a Muslim, Hindu, and Sikh at the same time. It was okay for a Muslim woman to go to a Hindu temple. It was okay for a Hindu temple to come to a Muslim dargah. And those traditions still exist in some spaces, in some places. They are slowly dying, but they still exist, and they almost and today they come across as anomalies. Today they come across as some of these artificial things that are not really reflective of the larger community. But I believe those were really the realities of the time period. And today, what we have today, this extreme compartmentalization of identities, of religions, of histories, is a very colonial concept as far as I understand. So this was actually an attempt for me to decolonize my mind, to decolonize my own understanding of who I am. And of course, who I am is a product of these multiple influences that have existed in our society. How can I, for example, talk about being Punjabi without talking about Guru Nanak? Guru Nanak plays the most foundational role in forming Punjabi language. We once again don't talk about Nanak's literary contribution, but the language that we have today is a product of what Baba Farid has done, and it's a product of what Guru Nanak has done, and it's a product of what Guru Arjan has done, and what Shah Hussain has done, and what Bulleh Shah has done. And these are all part of, so how can you be Punjabi and not talk about Guru Nanak? In fact, I feel like that is where the contradiction is. So I feel like when I'm talking about this as being part of my identity, in fact, I feel like that is the normal thing to say, and anything else which seems to be the majoritarian opinion is actually the anomaly, and it's actually the exception.
Okay, thank you.